Greetings and a warm welcome to Book Club Sessions. It's another week of literary conversations brought to you by Heart and Soul Broadcasting Services. And we are broadcasting from, the beautiful city of Zimbabwe. It's a brand new month, which means nothing but brand new conversations. And, today I'm really, really excited because, it's Women's Month that we're celebrating. And I have the pleasure, really, of welcoming onto the platform a very, very good friend of mine who's really doing a lot of work in terms of, the literary space of Zimbabwe. And I'm really honored to be able to kickstart Women's Month by, celebrating this very beautiful lady who's doing wondrous works in Zimbabwean literature. Now, I would like to take this opportunity to welcome onto the platform Samantha Rumbidzai Vazhure. Now, she is a bilingual poet and author and a recent winner at the National Arts Merit Awards. And her book, Starfish Blossoms, scooped the top award in the outstanding poetry book, and we're going to be talking about this book and just celebrating as well. As I mentioned, that this month is Women's Month, and we are going to be celebrating women achievers. Samantha, thank you so much for joining me here on the show. It's really an honor to have you here.
Oh, thank you, Khumbulani. It's wonderful to be here. Thank you for having me.
Indeed, and you know what? Women are the mothers of civilization, and we should be, celebrating them not only once, twice, thrice. We should be celebrating them every day. And as we always mention that here on Book Club Sessions, we want to celebrate and share the stories of our writers, of our poets, and this is what we are doing here. And getting on to our conversation, I want to just start off by, saying congratulations, Samantha.
Thank you.
On, being selected as a winner in one of the categories at the Namas. How are you feeling about this?
It feels surreal. I'm really, really happy. But yeah, it still feels like a dream. It's such a huge honor, that recognition that I don't know, that I never thought would come, because, us poets, most people don't get us. So to receive an award in poetry is just amazing, simply amazing. I'm still trying to digest the news, but I'm very happy. I'm elated.
Indeed.
It's absolutely amazing.
Exactly. It's, winning is just something, that really elevates your spirit, and it just spurs you on to, just continue doing the best that you're doing. And I just want you, Samantha, to just walk us through, how you felt, just say, from the moment you stepped onto the plane, anticipating these awards, what was going through your mind?
Okay, so as you mentioned earlier, I am a publisher. So 3 books published by Canelian Heart were nominated for awards. So, and for me, I think that was the deciding factor to actually come and attend the awards. I think if it was just my book or maybe one other book, I might have talked myself out of coming. But when I heard that 3 of the books I published were nominated, I thought, right, I have to go. I need to at least go and experience this. Even if none of them win, I want to go and experience the awards. I'd never been to a red carpet event. I'd never been to an awards ceremony before. So I thought, you know what, you only live once. And, I might never get nominated again. So I need to go and experience this. So yeah, so for me, it was just about coming here and meeting other people, networking, and just enjoying the moment.
Indeed, indeed. And now this book here, Starfish Blossoms, is a collection of poems exploring the vagaries of patriarchy and women's hard-won victories amid the abstractions of love, growth, and death. And, we always want to, just find out from our poets and our writers, the intentions behind, composing some of these works. But before we get into that, I just want to ask Samantha, I want to ask you, Hanzwadze Kuti, how far back, would you trace, your engagements with literature? And, you were born in the UK but raised in Zimbabwe. I would like, just to ask you to walk us, just briefly, through, some of these periods in your life, prior to you establishing the publishing house that you are currently running, and which is really promising to be something that will really assist us in the evolutionary process of, the literary space of Zimbabwe. Please just walk us, Samantha.
Okay, so I think I've always been like an arts person, in my earliest memory of doing well in the arts was when I was 16 and doing my O-levels. My English teacher encouraged me to enter the Randall's National Essay Competition, and I won the prize for Masvingo. I mean, I went to school in Masvingo at Victoria High School. So that was I think the earliest memory of being recognized for being good in writing. But at the time, I just thought, well, I'm good at writing compositions or essays, and I won this. And it wasn't a big deal at the time. I didn't realize that maybe it was something I should have nurtured or done, just didn't think to do much about it. But after that, though, I went on to do my A-levels, and I studied literature in English, Shona, and divinity. So, and I think that might explain, some of the things you come across in my work. So, I'm also a bilingual author, so I write in English and I write in Shona, I write in Chikaranga specifically, because obviously I'm from Masvingo and Karango Kwachivi. So I write in that dialect because I do want to preserve it. So I think those were sort of the early years. And I mean, after high school, I went ahead and studied law, so I'm a lawyer. Got married, had kids, and kind of lost myself a little bit because I was busy looking after other people. And I think now, because my children have grown up and they're a little bit more self-sufficient, I find myself with a bit more time to find myself again, and I'm doing that through art. So I write to express myself, sometimes to find myself, so I started writing actively and more intentionally around, I'd say 2018, 2019, thereabouts, and I published my first book in 2020. So the first book was Shadzugwa Msango, as you know, a collection of poems written in Chikaranga, telling the migrant story from the perspective of an African woman. The book celebrates, the wins of maybe being in the diaspora, but also highlighting some of the, downfalls or the not so great aspects of it, because obviously most of us who leave are trying to find greener pastures, but not everyone who seeks those greener pastures finds them. So not everyone has a good time living, abroad or away from home. So that book talks about the various experiences of people who've left home. And then I translated that book to Uprooted. So that same collection of poems is directly translated into English, and that book is called Uprooted. And then a few months, probably half a year later, I also published my first novel, Painting a Mirage, December 2020. And then after that, I sort of took a break from writing, and that's when I established Carnelian Art, because I felt I'd really enjoyed the process of producing my own books. And I wanted to extend that sort of service, if you want to call it that, to other Zimbabweans. Because at the back of my mind, as I was producing my own books, I kept thinking there's so many sort of pitfalls, so many things to learn. And I was thinking, it was a challenging process, if I'm being honest. And I kept thinking, if I'm experiencing this and I'm in the UK, where there are resources, it's things like, free Wi-Fi or whatever, and I was thinking, what about the people back home who can't access the information that I'm accessing while I'm here? And sometimes even just the money to get a book published. It's quite difficult to have the resources to get a great book done. So I wanted to help fellow Zimbabwean writers to publish their own works, and that's what I'm doing now.
Yes. So we're going to talk about the books, that are under, Carnelian Art Publishing. And, there are quite a number, and they keep growing by the days, and we really appreciate, Samantha, the work that you're doing. And now you mentioned something about your professional career, your professional career in law does it complement, you know, your literary activities?
Absolutely.
Zinopindirana.
Zvinotopindirana. So most of my career I've worked for big corporate companies, and if anyone who's worked in those sort of environments, I work for in financial services as an in-house lawyer or in compliance and risk management. So anyone who's familiar with that environment will tell you how important attention to detail is. You know, speed, attention to detail. You know, there's no compromise on mistakes or being careless and untidy and all those things. So, and I think those are some of the skills I transfer to the arts, because you know, a lot of times people will say, how come you're managing to produce such good quality in such a short space of time? I'm used to working under enormous pressure and getting it right first time.
First time. I can imagine.
Because, you know, that's just how it works in the, you know, in the corporate world. You're always under pressure. Everyone wants everything done now. So I think I sort of, you know, it's not necessarily a healthy way of living, but I think I carry that, I think I carry those skills to the publishing. So I'm very particular about the quality of the work I produce. I'm almost a perfectionist.
Exactly. And, you know, we might just saying this, but, you know, the quality aspect that you have brought into the fray is amazing. And what really impresses me is also the need that you identify to try and promote or to, you know, spotlight, you know, the local writers, you know, and give them a chance to be published. But you're also just doing that with a lot of quality and a lot of class. You know, you should see the book covers, you know, that you know are coming out of Carnelian Heart Publishing, and it's amazing. We really need this, you know, in our quest to, as I mentioned, try and assist in the evolutionary process of our local book industry. And I'm really happy and I'm confident of the future, especially because of the work that you're doing.
Oh, thank you.
Please continue doing what you're doing. Now, I want us to talk about Carnelian Heart from his perspective. You founded it 2020, right? Mm-hmm. And maybe the name Carnelian. Mm-hmm. You know, what does it mean? What significance does it have?
Okay.
You know, to the whole thing.
Okay, so carnelian is the name of a stone, like a gemstone. So similar to opal, serpentine, rose quartz. You know, it's just a rock. Mm-hmm. But it's, you know, I believe that, you know, these rocks carry certain energies. And carnelian, the energy that's carried by the carnelian stone is creative energy. So it's a stone that encourages creativity, positivity, and things like that. So carnelian represents that, you know, we're trying to promote the creative, we're trying to cultivate the creative energy of what we're doing, you know, of the authors, of Zimbabwean authors. And heart just kind of says that whatever I'm doing it from the bottom of my heart. So, you know, we want that creative energy, and I'm really serious about it, as I'm doing it with all my heart. And that's kind of what Carnelian Heart stands for.
Yes, yeah. And, you know, it's amazing. Like I mentioned, we are celebrating women achievers. And today on the show, I have Samantha Rumbidzai Vazhure. And she is one individual who's really putting in a lot of work that we hope will really assist us in these efforts that we're doing. Now, talking about resilience, you are a mother, you know, you are a writer, you are a publisher, you have, you know, your professional career that you are juggling. Where are you getting this resilience from? You know?
Do you know what? I don't quite know, but I can guess. You know, I don't, like, you know, I was raised in Masvingo, and as a man, I'm sure you know the joke. You go to a cousin, what you want to do? Right? You know, there's that going on. You know, we're really raised to have it all, or to want it all. You know, you're supposed to grow up and be a professional. You know, you're raised now. You know, you don't. We're raised to sort of not fully rely on a man. We're expected to get married. You know, there's all that. You know, it's a very sort of traditional, patriarchal society, and that culture is there, and it's you know, it's just there, and it's strong. So and that's where I come from. So you're expected to do it all, you know, and it is what it is. So Yeah, I just did as I was told to do. You work hard in school, you get qualified, you've got a good profession, you're a high flyer, but you're also expected to get married, be a mother, and all that stuff. So I think these things just come naturally. And I think, just looking at my childhood, so many responsibilities. I'm the firstborn in the family. I was a school prefect or whatever. So I was always expected to multitask and be resilient and just get on with life and do it well. So, it all comes from my childhood. And then, of course, I went on to study law, and I work in these sort of very fast-paced environments where there's no room for mistakes or whatever. And that's just strengthens you, further. But I have to say that I think there comes a time when you kind of think, you know what, I'm tired of this speed, the perfectionism, the whatever. And, and you start thinking to yourself, I need to be kind to myself a little bit. So a lot of what I write about, is about women and trying to encourage them to say no to the pressure. You don't always have to go with the flow. When you're tired, rest. And when you don't feel like doing anything, just say no. It's time to, abdicate this crown of thorns, as I call it in my poetry. Because we're not machines, we're feelings, we're made of flesh as well, we get tired.
Exactly.
So, so those are some of the things, because I've been through it. I've been through the fire. It's hard, and we're taught to ignore the feelings of tiredness, and we're crowned for being resilient, but it's not a very nice feeling to always be on the ball, to always be perfect, to always be great. Sometimes it's good to say, you know what, I can't do this, or I need a break. Because if you don't do that, you'll just, you'll die. You'll get sick and die. So,
exactly.
yeah.
And, the way you also, I want us to talk about the beauty of poetry. And, the way you express all these experiences in your work is just amazing.
Thank you.
And I would like to believe it's pleasurable.
Absolutely.
Despite, we go through different experiences, pain and stuff like that, various emotions. But, being able to express these in poetry form is just something beautiful. Absolutely. Let's talk about the beauty of, being able to express yourself, using poetry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think for me, it was difficult at first to get to this point of being to express myself the way I want to, because our society is very judgmental. So as we live our lives, at the back of our minds, we're always thinking of that judgment and shame and thinking, if I write this, what will people think? And blah, blah, blah. But I think as a poet, you need to go through a process of doing away with that. And I think once you reach that point of shame doesn't exist, things happen to women and we're shamed for talking about them. And I think as a woman, you just need to decide, do you know what? Shame doesn't exist in my vocabulary. I'm going to say what I need to say. And it's very healing and liberating to be able to get to that point. And once you get to that point of, I'm going to write what I want to write, that's where those feelings come. That's when the feelings come out.
Exactly.
That's where those expressions come from. Because you're not thinking,
exactly.
So I think the first thing, if you want to write powerful poetry, is to do away with shame and thinking about or worrying about what people think. So exactly. you just need to do away with that. And once you get to that point, the world's your oyster. You literally have access to anything, from nature to conversations with people to whatever. You can literally use, or just even imagine things. Sometimes I imagine things happening in other realms of this universe, and I just write about that. So yeah.
Beautiful,
yeah.
Beautiful. Like, what? I love poetry because of its beauty, and also because as a tool of instruction, it's really something that is, very valuable, and we love and we respect our poets and our writers, and we feel like, personally, I feel writers and poets are a very special kind,
Yeah.
Literature, like the good thing about literature is you can talk about anything.
Absolutely.
You know, you can talk about anything under the sun.
Absolutely.
You know, so we really appreciate our writers, and that is why here on Book Club Sessions we want to celebrate and share their stories. And Samantha, this book here, Takari launched last year.
Yeah.
And
October,
I was
November
there.
last. Yeah.
November last year I was there. You know, I enjoyed myself, and you know, it was such an intimate environment, and I loved every bit about it. And looking at some of the books, you know, that you have managed to publish, besides your own titles, you have been able to publish quite a number of books. Talk about The Crocodile River by Pauline Magosongwe, 3:15 a.m. and other short stories by Rudo Manyere, Turquoise Dreams. That's another book that we at God of Consciousness Poetry also you know, awarded to one of our winning poets in the God of Consciousness National Poetry Writing Competition. And as also just as a way of, you know, just making sure that poets and writers engage with each other through reading, you know, works written by local writers and poets. And another book that really caught my attention by force is one by Tsikamai Chando, titled Cremation of the Scarecrow. This book is amazing.
Absolutely.
The lyrical power, I loved it.
That's a classic.
It's a classic.
It's a classic.
You know?
Yeah.
And Tsikamai Chando, Mugauru, if you are watching, I really appreciate the work that you're doing, and I just can't wait to have your works, you know, distributed so that everybody and everyone can be able to engage with your works. Another book that I would like to ask you about is Brilliance of Hope, the anthology.
Yes.
That book, let's talk about that book. What was going through your mind, and what was the intention really of, you know, putting together these writers from, you know, the diaspora to write about their experiences through short stories? What was the intention there?
Well, I feel that there are many migrant voices. There's so many of us have left home to you know, to seek greener pastures, and of course we've got a few books by Zimbabweans in the same situation, you know, that talk about the migrant experience. But I wanted to put together an anthology that I don't know, that represented different voices in one place, if that makes sense. I wanted the different voices in one book. So I reached out to a few writers I knew, some I didn't know, and you know, asked them to write 3 stories each that, you know, that represented what it meant to live away from home. So yeah, I mean, with some really great writers in there. Some of them are newer writers. So it was a nice mix. I do like doing that when I'm compiling anthologies. I want to have the seasoned writer in there, and also the sort of amateur writer who can be mentored, you know, during the editing process, because that way it's then a more meaningful project. So when I do the anthologies, I actually intentionally want to seek talent from writers with potential who can be mentored into great writers. So we went through that process as well with Brilliance of Hope. And so we managed to, I contributed some stories to that collection as well. And there are 15 writers in a total of 41 stories in that anthology. And, you know, you've got stories from South Africa, the States, the UK, some of the writers are in Zimbabwe as well, and so many themes are addressed in that anthology. You know, from xenophobia and racism. You've got identity crisis. You've got but the identity crisis is something that's very real, because, you know, we grow up here, we've got our culture here, and then you suddenly leave the country and you're exposed to different cultures, and then you think, well, how do I deal with this? Because when you leave, you're also trying to integrate in the new society that you've gone to, and then people back home also expect you to maintain the culture that you were taught here. So a lot of people go through identity crisis because they just eventually don't know what to do. Do I stick with this or do I start doing that? But yeah, so those are some of the things that are in there. And then also, like, as we kind of get exposed to new cultures, people choose to, I don't know, liberate themselves. When I'm thinking of women, for example, Zimbabwe is a very patriarchal country, traditional and patriarchal. Maybe you leave the country and then you get exposed to other freedoms. And, you go to a country where women are allowed to do certain things that aren't allowed here. People are free enough to express themselves. And even when we talk about sort of gender issues, you can be openly gay in another country, but back home, you're not allowed to be who you are. So I wanted all those themes come out in those stories. So I wanted to encourage, I don't know, freedom of expression. Just write what you feel, write what you think. Is it a celebration, or is it I don't know, are you celebrating or are you complaining about being out of the country? So there's a nice mix of stories in there.
Wow.
And you get a taste of everything. So there are really wonderful stories of people who found it great who have found the greener pastures in other countries. And there are also stories of people who just haven't found those greener pastures and have really, really struggled. So that's what Brilliance of Hope is about. And of course, Brilliance of Hope just means whoever leaves their country is hopeful. So even when they go through the hardships of, the challenges of living in a foreign country, it's that hope that keeps them going. It's that hope that keeps them there. It's that hope that drives the whole thing. So, yeah, that's what Brilliance of Hope is about. Yeah.
The 4th International Renewable Energy Conference and Expo, in partnership with the Ministry of Energy and Power Development of Zimbabwe, will be held under the theme Managing the Future, Clean Energy Possibilities, from the 21st to the 24th of March 2023.
This conference is timely. Renewable energy is no longer a matter of choice, but of necessity. It is important that we remain alive to work concertedly towards the realization of SDG 7.
So save the date. The conference will take place at the Elephant Hills Hotel in Victoria Falls, Zimbabwe. For more information or to register, go on events at alphamedia.co.zw or renewable.amh.co.zw. Managing the future. Clean energy is possible.
41 brilliant short stories, published by Carnelian Heart Publishing. Now, there's so much to talk about, Rumbi, but before we do a book reading, I just want to ask you, what's the most impactful book that you've ever published so far?
You know what? I don't know. I just feel like they're all my babies and I love them equally. But I think my first project, Turquoise Dreams, I was still learning. I just published my own 3 books. And, that was the first book that wasn't my own that I published. And it was Turquoise Dreams is a women-only anthology of short stories. And, I just felt that the first people I wanted to help were women. And I feel very strongly about that. And I'm very, very proud of it because, I didn't really have a track record. I'd only published my own books. And I was new to social media. I'd only come on social media, I think, around April or May 2020. And I started working on this project, I think, around maybe June, July of 2020. So I didn't have a huge following. I didn't have a track record. But I approached these amazing women writers and asked them to contribute to this anthology. And the fact that they entrusted their work to me it meant so much. It gave me so much confidence as a publisher as well. So I think for me that's probably one of the most important books. But that's not to say I don't love the others. I love them all equally, I think.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed. Wow, beautiful. Now we want to get into a book reading session here. And I want to read a poem from Starfish Blossoms, the award-winning book that was awarded in the category of Best Poetry Book at NAMA. So I want to read a poem here titled Fine Wine, and it goes like this. I want to be the fine wine in your glass, so I can trip the wires in your brain and be your inner peace. I want to end all ailments of your heart, softening and healing your chest, bridging your unending bliss. I want to ease your stress, help you lapse out of emptiness, be absorbed by you, relax your loins and make you laugh. Would you store me in the cellar to mature when I am organic, born fine, and contain no additives? Take me as I come, temperate, and there'll be no hangovers, hissy fits, or endless undesirables. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful piece of work. And there are, how many pieces are in this book?
I think there's 67 poems.
So there are 67 poems approximately in this book here. And I would like to guarantee the readers, our viewers and our listeners that this book here will give you the absolute experience, in terms of poetry, and also just engaging with the various themes, that we encounter as humanity. Now, I love this piece, Samantha. Thank you so much for putting this together. And maybe I would also like to ask you to, maybe find a poem to read just before we wrap up our conversation here.
Okay.
And also, maybe while you look for the piece, I wanted to ask you about, whatever we do, we are always encountering challenges. And when I was just preparing for this interview, I noticed that there's a book that you published, titled Once Upon a Time, and how the author, Vice Nganga, initially had started writing it on WhatsApp.
He actually wrote the whole book on WhatsApp.
Yeah, that's about like what, 40,000.
Yeah, nearly 50,000 words actually.
How challenging was dealing with that?
It was quite challenging, but it was a very interesting project, that was, because, he sent me his manuscript. It was actually not even in a Word format. It was literally, he sent me the WhatsApp, whatever, discussion. And and I had to copy and paste it into Word. So that was really interesting because this guy had written this book. It was very well written, and yet he had not used a word processor. That was the first thing that impressed me, because when I copied and pasted it into Word, there were barely any typos or mistakes. And I thought to myself, this guy is good. This guy, I'm going to publish this guy, because what I expected was when I copied and pasted it into Word, I was expecting to see a million, typos and mistakes. But no, it was probably one of the easiest books to edit. It was very well written.
Wow.
And I just thought to myself, here's a person who's really determined. He's really keen, but he doesn't have the resources to, sort of do things properly or to get his work published. And I thought, I really want to help him. And that's what I did. So, it was edited by 2 people. I think I edited that one with Daniel Mutendi. And it was a fairly quick process because there just weren't that many mistakes. The plot was great. The grammar, it was just it's a great little book, and I enjoyed working on it a lot. So yeah, no, I think that was one of my favorite projects to work on. It was tough in that obviously you're having to the formatting was difficult because obviously it wasn't done on Word. That was probably the most challenging, just formatting it so that it looks like a proper novel. But otherwise it was brilliant little book.
Fantastic.
So, yeah.
Now we get into our piece. Please take it away, Samantha.
Okay, I'll read Tasting Heaven. It's just a childhood memory from Epworth, actually. So it's one of my favorite poems. It's something that used to happen when I went to visit my grandmother who lived in Epworth. So it's called Tasting Heaven. When Gogo hands me 50 cents for crumbs, I run to the shops, dust bathing, barefooted, fast as my ashy legs can go, dodging drunkards staggering from Kwadakutzwa, hopping over streams and puddles of septic water, snubbing the catcaller's clamor. Chidaf dunda, chichanesa pachinokura. It is time for Jonas, and Epworth's hub is buzzing with novel progeny on temporary pass from filial fuss. Momentary abundance ups the frequency of nonagenarians squatting over pit latrines when sickness is as rare as death. Behind the big shops, Kwachiremba, Kwasolani, Kwamtandwa, where we buy Lobels and London delivered hot at daybreak. before before we're off to play Nodo, Pada, Nanja, next to God's feet at the imposing Lombora Mari, or to butter trade snot for good measure behind the balancing rocks. A small pop-up shop sells savory pastry breakages in cone-shaped newspapers drenched in olive and oil, kuma crumbs. Sometimes I wolf them down whole with only my saliva to wash them down. Sometimes I have 5 cents extra for a pennycool to wash them down. Sometimes I sit outside with the pennycool vendors to watch the denizens whilst savoring the crumbs, peeling each flake of pastry to discover knickknacks veiled in its folds. Ishwa, Nunzi, Mapete. It's a lucky dip still and all. So I flick out the whatnots and relish the freedom to just be.
Wow, 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 wow. Thank you so much, Samantha. You know what? As I mentioned, there is so much to talk about. So much, but yeah, it's so very, very little time for us to completely or thoroughly exhaust everything. But you know what? I want to take this opportunity to thank you so much for joining me here on the platform and just, affording us the opportunity to, walk in your world, and just understand also where you are coming from. But lastly, before you leave, recently you are now becoming a painter. Where is that coming from? You are now becoming an avid painter. What's happening here? Just quickly tell us about that.
So interestingly, poetry led me to painting because as I was, getting ready to launch Starfish Blossoms, I had a thought that I wanted to make a video of the title poem. And I'd seen other people doing painting poetry videos, and I wanted to do my own. So I tried to find someone who would paint starfish blossoms, the actual flowers, while I read out my poem. And I struggled to find an artist who would do that for me. So in the end, I thought, you know what? I'm just going to learn to paint, and I'll do it myself. That's how it started. So I actually learned to paint and actually produced the video, which is on my YouTube channel now. And as I was sort of practicing so I could do that painting for the video, I just got addicted to painting, and now I can't stop. So I'm painting a lot. I painted loads and loads of starfish blossom paintings at the time, but I've started painting other things now. Landscapes, portraits, and all that stuff. And I'm finding it very, very, very interesting. And I might just become a full-time painter.
Indeed. Yeah. Thank you so much, Samantha. And I know that it's actually something that influences your creative process.
Absolutely.
That one, I'm quite sure of it.
Yeah.
So that was Samantha Vazhure, joining me here on Book Club Sessions. And I just want to say thank you so much, Samantha. I know you are leaving later, and I just wish you a safe journey. And so may you just continue, just being a blessing and just being such an impact in the community. Yeah. Just know that we appreciate.
Oh, thank you so much.
You. Super.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining us here on Book Club Sessions. And until we see you again next week on the next episode, it's really been a pleasure. Now, if you want to be part of this conversation, if you want to be part of the show, you can get in touch with me on the following number, 0715-450-146, alternatively on Khumbulani@heartandsoul.co.zw, and we'll make a plan to have you feature here on the show. Thank you so much. Until we see you again in the next week, it's bye-bye for now.